Welcome to the Relational Approach podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Bakhti. I feel so inspired after this conversation with Denise Brown, who I connected with through LinkedIn, actually. And she spends her time helping caregivers, whether that be caregivers that work in organizations like seniors care or individuals who are taking care of their loved ones at home and maybe dealing with a transition at some point in time. I was really intrigued, and we talked a bit about her caregiving listening project. And we also had a really interesting conversation about her thoughts on compassion fatigue. And quite frankly, who hasn't ever suffered some type of fatigue? And she breaks down that really, she views that as an umbrella term. And I think that you'll get a lot out of this conversation. And from a personal as well as a professional perspective. So I hope you really enjoy this chat. Hi, Denise. Welcome to the Relational Approach podcast. I'm so glad to have you here with me today.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to our conversation. Thank you so much for having me on your great show.
Thank you. Well, I'm really glad that we connected somehow on LinkedIn. And I just am captivated by the posts that you share and the insights that you offer to people that are connected with you. And I thought maybe the place to start would be just for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do. And then I have no doubt that we will take it from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I started working with family caregivers in 1990 because I was working at a congregate meal site where we served a noon lunch to seniors who lived in the community, and we delivered Meals on Wheels. And that's what started my career. And actually, it was a career change. I'm a writer. People weren't reading what I was writing, which I have a big ego, and that drove me nuts. So I thought that there's got to be something else I can do. I was going to freelance write, and I thought I need a cash flow. And so I got a part-time job, and I loved it. I had never thought about working with older adults, never. And because of that, I also started working with their family caregivers. And then I managed a respite care program. Then I moved into working in senior communities as an admissions director. And then I started a small business to support family caregivers. And that was in 1995.
So you really appreciate both perspectives with the family caregiver of their loved one, as well as you mentioned that you worked in managing admissions of new residents and families moving into seniors care.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so a lot of the work that you talk about is support for caregivers. And I think I'd like to start by asking you a little bit about your perspective on compassion fatigue, because we know that that is a thing and it's experienced with both family caregivers as well as care team members that work in seniors care and well, pretty well anywhere in healthcare. So I'd love you to expand on that a bit for me.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting term, compassion fatigue. And I started thinking about that as more of an umbrella term rather than a specific term, probably about 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. I have training programs to help former family caregivers become caregiving coaches. And in one of the training sessions, one of the training program participants talked about her mom and how her mom just couldn't cope with anything. And I started thinking about what had happened to her mom over the past couple years, which included her spouse had died, her health had declined significantly, living alone was difficult for her, so there was help in the home. And I thought, it's not that she can't cope, it's that she's coped out. She has been coping with such significant losses and changes that she just doesn't have the energy to continue to cope with the little stuff. And I think we can all relate to that. It's the big
Mhm.
stuff that we put the energy into coping about, but it's the long line at the grocery store that just puts us over the edge because we think, I can't cope with this. I can't cope with this. I remember when I was caring for my parents, I would grocery shop for my mom on Sundays. And I went to the grocery store she liked, and she knew the pattern. So she would tell me the list of what to buy based on the pattern of the store. So
Okay.
yes, that was my mom. Wow. I mean, isn't that amazing? She just knew it.
Yeah.
And then I went into the store one day and they had changed everything. Oh, was I mad. I thought, "You're kidding me." Now I have to figure out the new layout and where stuff is. I had it all figured out. My mom had it figured out. This is terrible. So it's those kinds of things that we just think, "I can't cope with one more thing," like the grocery store changing where the products are.
Mhm.
When I had this insight that we can get specific about what wears us out in order to heal what's wearing us out, I thought then that compassion fatigue really is this umbrella term. And when I think about the different fatigues, for instance, we experience, it's decision fatigue, it's support fatigue, it's grief fatigue, guilt fatigue, worry fatigue. And then I've asked over the years for others to add in their experiences around fatigue, and it's just amazing what comes up. So, for instance, someone mentioned caution fatigue on my LinkedIn post the other day. I thought, and he had learned about caution fatigue as a civil engineer. Isn't this interesting? So
Yeah.
had gone to a conference with civil engineers, and they talked about caution fatigue as a direct result of the pandemic. And in the Chicagoland area, we've had a lot of road construction. So we are always in a state of, "Oh, I have to slow down. I have to be cautious." But you add in what we experienced during the pandemic and then what it's been like to drive, for instance, caution fatigue. We get
Mhm.
tired of being cautious, of always looking out for the threat, of always being prepared for a threat. So it's interesting to think about what wears us out and then what can help us cope, what can help us heal. And that's really the purpose of getting specific about what wears us out.
It actually reminds me when I got certified in with my coaching designation way, way back in 1999, uh, there was an exercise around listing your tolerations. And the purpose of that was to look at what is it that you're tolerating in your life. And it sounds to me there's a correlation to what you were just describing because we don't necessarily recognize that it's draining our energy. And I think in the realm of in seniors care and we're working toward having this more relational approach because it's all about people. It's all about connections, all about relationships. Sometimes I feel like staff, care team members and families can meet each other at the very beginning and they're already in a relational deficit. And I think what you're saying is that these tolerations or all of these things that fit under the umbrella of compassion fatigue contribute to that relational deficit. And if we don't have the energy or the presence or the ability to really be in the moment and be focused on building that relationship because of all these other issues and distractions and detractors that are happening, then it gets in the way of being able to make that connection, which is so very much needed.
First of all, congratulations on going through coaching in 1999. You were probably one of the first handful of coaches. That's
It was a long
awesome.
time ago, yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, and I think about 1999 is really the pivotal time for coaching. That's when it all really started rising up, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
There's another fatigue that I wonder about related to what you just described, and that's grace fatigue, where we pretend that everything is okay. And that's exhausting. So, for instance, and help me out with this example, but this is what came up for me. There's a new admission to a facility. The family caregiver is exhausted, and typically their their exhaustion is what can lead to placement. So they're already at a deficit, which is just a great term that you've given us. They're already at a deficit, which means they don't have the energy to cope with a lot that's happening. And when there's an admission, there's changes. And we do our best on the side of the admission team to help lay out what's going to happen so there's no surprises, except it's all out of our control in some regard. So there's a surprise, and the family caregiver can't cope.
Mhm.
They're already feeling guilty They're already exhausted, and then they think, "Oh my gosh, I thought this was gonna be smooth, and there's a hiccup. I can't manage this."
Mhm.
And then from the staffing side, there might be other challenges they're working through, like someone on the care team was sick and called out. So they're down one team member, but they don't want to say that to the family caregiver, right? So they are being gracious about what their scramble is. And then it's the collision of all of that. And that deficit, then, as you have really wonderfully explained, puts us all at a disadvantage during the first moments. And those first moments matter.
Right. And so looking at with the work that you do, and we assume that this is our hypothesis as to what happens on that first day, and I refer to it as like admission anxiety that both sides are having for their own reasons. And you already have the premise that there's no slow days in long-term care. So with a new family and resident that are moving in, it's already a busy day and all of those factors that you've just mentioned. What are some practical ways that we could help make deposits into that relational bank account
Wow.
from
Yeah.
your perspective?
Yeah. So there's this great skill that I learned in life coach training. Mine was 2004, so I was behind you. And it validation. And in many ways, what heals us is for someone to express they understand us. So a validation for the family caregiver, for instance, on that admission day can sound like, we know this is tough. We know this is going to be a difficult day. And we understand that emotions are high today. And then it could be followed up with a question like, what's really worrying you today? And that if we understand their biggest worry, then maybe that's where the priority can go to. I think
Mhm.
oftentimes we assume because we've done so many admissions that we understand every admission and we just go into it assuming this is what we could do for the family. And that's a great like uh, foundation. And we want to build up from that to understand each particular family caregiver's worry about what's going on admission day. And then instead of us trying to take care of everything, we can start with taking care of their first worry. And that can be the focus then that helps us all feel better. Oh, she is really worried about what's going to happen when she leaves and who her dad is going to sit with at dinner. Okay, let's get this all straight for her. Let's tell her who her dad is going to sit with and let's introduce her to those residents. Let's introduce her dad too. And that can actually then help start putting the deposits into the relationship. And what's so interesting about that is when we resolve a worry, we feel better.
Yeah.
We feel energized. It's when we're not sure what we're resolving that we get just absolutely burnt out. Like, what am I resolving here? There seems to be so many problems. I don't know where to focus. And if we ask that family caregiver basically, where should we focus so we take care of you? Then we all feel a little better.
I love that so much, Denise, because you're right. There are a gajillion questions and checklists and all of those processes and protocols and policies that need to be followed. And yet, when we're looking at being able to make that connection, first of all, what I feel is the ability to slow down, which is really hard for people to do when they feel like they've got so much to do, but to slow down, ask that one question and listen. And it's creating awareness and tying in with that, validating to the family that they matter. And this may be the first time that somebody's even asked them how they feel, because a lot of the focus is on the resident, as it needs to be, 100%, but also tapping into them that I think it's almost a bit of, an interrupter in whatever thought pattern that they're having at that moment of time, the whirlwind that's going through their head to ask them a question like that. It's sort of like, "Er," the brakes. I got to stop for a moment and think about that. And that creates a moment of calm, possibly. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then you tell the team what the worry is, and then everybody works together. Oh, okay. Let's
We
take
can
care
do
of yeah,
that,
we can take
right?
care of that. We can do it. We
And
can
from
do
a
it.
team perspective, it's what one thing do we need to focus on to make a huge difference? And that is doable, which also cuts through the overwhelm. And I think as well, when one of the worries that staff can have with a new family coming in is that they don't know what the family's going to be like. And if they've ever been burned by a difficult family interaction, our brain immediately assumes danger, I got to be on the lookout, right? And so I think also by hearing what that worry is with the family, it humanizes them. It shows their vulnerability, which I then think gives permission to the staff to feel a bit vulnerable with, I really wanna help resolve this worry or diminish the worry that this family member has because I really, really want them to have a good first impression of us. I love that.
I love this idea that we can slow down in order to save time.
Mhm.
It's when we speed past that we actually sometimes waste time. Anytime there's a chance to interact with another and really understand where they are and what they need is a chance for us to actually be of service and a chance for us to feel like, wow, I am figuring this out. I am resolving. I am solving. It's a really empowering place to be.
Mhm. And to build on that, because I wanna get to, um, the next area that I wanna unpack with you, it's really about stepping into the superpower of curiosity,
Mm.
which then leads to that superpower of listening. And when we talked last time and you shared with me you have this caregiving listening project, I thought, I really need you to talk about this more. And what you've discovered in that power, that superpower of being able to really listen effectively, because I think it's an underutilized skill set and gift that we can give to other people and ourselves.
Yes, and you know why we don't wanna listen? Is because we think it takes up too much time. I don't have time to listen. And in truth, when we just spend a few minutes listening and are curious as we listen, we gain invaluable information that helps us really connect and serve and meet another's needs, which then makes it easier for us to move through our day. And I learned this because as a coach, we really focus on listening. And I would have exercises during my training where participants would actually provide a listening experience for a fellow participant. And we would do this by telling 4-minute stories. And I can't remember exactly why I landed on 4 minutes, but for some reason, 4 minutes seemed like a great time. And participants in the program would share a 4-minute story, and then their cohort would listen and then use skills like asking good questions and validating. And it was amazing to me what would happen when someone felt heard just by
Mhm.
telling 4 minutes. There was one training program participant, Lisa, I'll always remember this. She stood in front of the classroom, shared a 4-minute story about caring for her dad, which was riddled with guilt. She just felt like she let him down, she let her daughter down, she let her career down. And when she expressed it to us, and we just said, "Oh, it's so hard to be 3 places at the same time. No wonder you were stressed out," and asked for more about her experience. It was amazing to see how she looked different. After telling the story, engaging in a conversation about the story with her, she sat back down and it was like a veil had lifted. She had covered herself with the guilt. And when that was removed, it was like we saw this fully evolved person. It was amazing. It was amazing. So since then, I've really focused on what can we do to show up as better listeners for others in our life. And the Caregiving Listener Project is a way to do that. And I also know that we hold worries inside. One of the reasons we do that is because people tell us, "Don't worry, it's not gonna happen." Oh, yeah. Well, I guess logically I know that, but you know what? In my heart, that is not helping me not worry. That's
Mhm.
helping me keep my worry inside because now I don't know who to tell it to. So the Caregiving Listener Project is an opportunity to share a worry or tell a story or really talk about an experience that's been profound and powerful. And we train volunteer listening artists to be available. And it usually is a 20-minute session. It's a 4-minute story, and then it's a conversation about the story. And again, people just feel like, "Phew, I wasn't judged for my worry. I wasn't judged for my story. I just connected to someone who was curious about it,
Mhm.
wanted to learn more, gave me an opportunity to share more. And now I feel like, okay, I'm a little lighter. The worry isn't so heavy on me. It's really been a wonderful experience to do this. We do it twice a year.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about with homes, whether it's through their family council or through their programs department, how to be able to set up something for families. Because I find one of the thing, and it continues to surprise me, but also doesn't, that when families first move their loved one into seniors care, they feel very alone.
Yes.
And yet we know how many people have loved ones that live in independent living or, memory care or long-term care. So but the feeling that they have is that they're alone, people don't understand. Some families feel that they've been judged by family and friends for throwing their loved one into, an institution, a lot of that negative feelings, and then I also, because I can just reflect on my own experience, we have that voice in our own head that is telling stories that really aren't accurate, or we're judging ourselves, and then there's the guilt that we're feeling or the shame of saying certain things out loud and not feeling confident that they can have a conversation where someone's not going to, uh, tell them what they should be doing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or judging them for that, and it sounds like what you've been able to set up, that it actually is repleting, not depleting experience for someone to be heard and honored and seen like that, that ideally, I would imagine they're walking away with, as you say, a whole new perspective, but also the ripple effect of that.
Yeah. And it's powerful for the storytellers and the listening artists. And here's why. When you are listening to a painful story, you want to jump in and fix it. You want to give unsolicited advice. You know what you should do? And the storyteller is like, "Oh my gosh, like if I could do that, I would have already done that, but that's not possible. That's why I'm in this struggle."
Mhm.
And when we're in a struggle, we're not wrong. And when someone jumps in to fix us, we feel like, wait a minute, this is a hard situation for me and I haven't created it. So I'm not wrong. The situation is wrong. I can't fix it. I just
Right.
need to be understood in it. So for the listening artist to have skills so they don't know, so they don't jump into fix, they just stay focused on listening is energizing for them. They haven't added tension into the conversation. The tension of, you know what you should do? It's instead this safe, trusted space where they both feel they are bringing value to the conversation. And the listening artist knows the solution is the listening session, and they've been trained on how to actually create that listening session and what skills to bring into it. So at the end of the listening session, you don't think, oh, I don't know if I helped. You had a listening session. You helped. You
Yes.
helped. You helped. You made a difference.
But we assume helping is fixing, providing a solution, making it better for them. And
Yes.
really, you've brought a coaching model into this and trusting that the individual that you're listening to has the skills and the abilities and the wisdom inside and, creating, a container for that to really come out, for them to be able to have their own revelations.
Yes. May I share something that happened when I was a storyteller a year ago?
Yeah, please do.
My brother died unexpectedly in 2021, and his wife was very focused on staying in relationship with myself and my sister. And we understood it was important to her, and I showed up for her, and I struggled in showing up for her because I never felt like we talked about the truth of why he might have died. And she was a hoarder, a significant hoarder. There was very little room in their one-bedroom apartment for both of them to exist in a quality of life situation. So in the back of my head, I always was like, but we got to talk about this because I think he died because of the stress of living in this situation. And yet she had so much shame about it, she couldn't. And so it was frustrating for me and it felt exhausting for me to be with her. And I talked about this during our listening project in 2024 in February. And I had a listening artist who just let me talk it out. And as I was talking it out, I thought, well, what would my brother and my parents want for me? And both my parents had died as well after my brother died. And I thought, well, they would want me to choose love. And then I thought, okay, I have to choose love with my sister in law. I just have to love her. I just have to love her. So when I showed up for her after that, it was all about who cares that she's a hoarder? Let it go. Just love her. She's in pain. She's in pain. Let it go. 6 months after that, my sister in law died. And I think if I had not talked that out, if I had not figured out how to show up for her, to show up for her in love, I would have regretted continuing to judge her. And when she died, it was very powerful to be with her knowing that we had loved her.
Yeah.
She had judged herself so significantly for my brother's death. I got that after I chose to love her. I thought, no wonder she needs to stay connected to us. It would just be awful for her if she felt we judged her as much as she judged herself.
Yeah.
And as she was dying, it was this moment of peace around the relationship with her. And when I think about the 4 deaths that I've experienced over the past 4 years, she's the one I miss the most.
Wow, that is so powerful.
I know.
And what a gift to in having that listening artist help you to be able to pull that out of yourself, right? And to create this where you are now and how much energy you're not spending on regret.
None. No
Yeah.
regrets. No regrets. Yeah. Which speaks to your point about we know if we only have an opportunity to hear our own wisdom. And when someone listens and lets us talk out the situation, we hear our own wisdom.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue to my final question for you as we wrap up this conversation. And that is, what does a relational approach mean to you?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. And I think about it as connecting as humans. And when we connect with as humans, we want to be curious about their human experience, knowing that their human experience includes pain, it includes love, it includes aspirations. We all want to get somewhere else in our life. And when we understand that, I think we can really show up in a powerful way for them just by showing up. I think we often judge whether or not showing up matters. And showing up matters. And when we connect with each other as humans, we know how to show up for another human. And that's really powerful. We always remember the ones who showed up.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Denise. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'll make sure that your contact info is in the show notes because I would love everyone to connect with you on LinkedIn and enjoy your incredible posts. And thank you for joining us on the Relational Approach podcast.
This was wonderful. It went by in a minute. Thank you for all you're doing. This is really fabulous.
Thanks, Denise. Thank you for joining us on the Relational Approach podcast. If you're enjoying this topic, I invite you to check out my website, deborahbakti.com. And when you click on the resources tab, you will be able to access a whole bunch of free resources that I would love for you to enjoy. You can also check out these episodes on my YouTube channel. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.